let's see. All right. Do you decide? Yeah, I'm getting from yours.
Denise, I'm sitting here. So
It's your okay, yeah, I have two computers on. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for being so patient with us. We're trying to move out of one meeting and then trying to unmute myself. Oh, I'm talking and nobody. Okay, yeah, see, let me put this one down. All right. Okay, good morning. Thank you all for being so patient. I hope that you all were able to get the meeting agenda. What we're going to do, okay, I'm Denise Bennett, Deputy Secretary, DEQ. We're going to go around and introduce ourselves here and just state what we represent, and we'd like to then have you all do the same, please. Is it good? Well, Jason's going to go first.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Jason Myers. I'm the administrator of our Airplane Assessment Division, and our division is primarily responsible for running our air monitoring site.
I'm Bob Bailey with Airfield Services.
All right, and actually I have Tamika here because she runs our Enviro School, and she is here purely to help me, manage the meeting.
I'll go next. I'm State Rep Mandy Landry, District 91, and I represent most of the Irish Channel, where Join is working on this issue.
My name is Matthew Schoenberger. I'm the Director of Community Engagement for the Office of Councilmember J.H. Banks. He represents District B in New Orleans.
My name is Damian Clark. I'm the legislative aide for Councilmember Christian Palmer, and we represent District C.
Hello, my name is Justin Vidito. I'm a member of Join, a resident of the Irish Channel. I live on Magazine, right on the edge of the Irish Channel.
And hi, my name's Kim Terrell. I live smack in the middle of the Irish Channel, and I have two other members with me here.
Hello, my name is Corina De Seo. I'm also an Irish Channel member, as Kim said, and I live very close to Chapatula Street.
Hi, I'm Yara Etheridge, and I'm also a resident of further uptown on the river around Napoleon on Annunciation Street.
And do we have anybody else from DEQ? I noticed there's a couple different DEQ screens. Did everyone from DEQ have the chance to introduce themselves?
Okay, yes, and what I can do is where we are, I got all of our air planning folks in so you all could see them. The Denise Bennett, that was my other computer right here. I can turn it off if you want me to. It's just that I had logged in because folks were in here earlier, and then I finally got to this one. But I can turn it off if that makes you guys more comfortable. So again, we have Tamika, we have
Jason.
And Bob.
Okay, yeah, no, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure everyone.
Who is, we haven't heard from T. Priolio. Is that a DEQ employee? Oh, that's you, Tamika. Okay, cool.
That's me.
All right. Cool, and Gina, you're muted if you'd like to unmute and join us, Gina. The unmute button lower left there.
I'm here. I just was doing and was thinking that I would chime in, raise my hand when necessary.
Awesome.
Cool.
And do video when it's necessary.
And is Ms. Lanier a resident or?
I'm a resident of Harvey, Louisiana, and I'm within 1,000 feet of BWC.
Okay, thank you very much.
And I'm Treb Weiniger. I live on 4th Street in the Irish Channel between Annunciation and Chippewa. I'm also with the Join group.
All right. Again, thank you guys so very much. Again, we have folks here from Air Planning and Assessment Division, and I'm going to go ahead. I'm not going to steal their thunder and let them talk about where we are in that air monitoring process. I did want to say, again, TLC, our temporary located monitoring, is something that has grown with the agency, and we're just delighted that we're able to have a program like this. Lots of communities around the state had been wanting something like that. Of course, you know that we have federally monitors that are required by EPA all across the state. And there is a protocol for determining where those are sited. So as we
Denise, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but since we have a couple people here who were not at our January meeting, I thought maybe we could start by just quickly kind of summing up where we left off in January for the benefit of those new folks, particularly from Council Member Palmer's office.
Okay. Okay. So
so just to kind of give everybody a very quick overview, we were, I think we were all really happy to meet last January. I know Matthew was part of that meeting from Jay Banks' office, of course, Mandy Landry. And so, we talked about the issue at length. DEQ informed us that BWC Harvey, that the agency had identified BWC Harvey as the primary source of the problem. And we talked about examples of other terminal facilities that had developed community engagement strategies. So for example, Deputy Secretary Bennett told us about another facility that had voluntarily transitioned to non-toxic products and suggested that, BWC Harvey might be able to do something similar, or at least, have some kind of community engagement plan. And so we did follow up on that with the company. And then we also had in that January meeting lots of questions about the air permit that weren't able to be addressed. So that's kind of where we left off in January, and we're looking forward to the opportunity to address those questions today and to also learn more about the air monitoring that's being proposed.
Excellent. Yeah, just again, I think you guys have become, really familiar with, the industry in the area. There's also on the river, there's a lot of river activity. So there are a lot of stationary sources, on both banks of the river as well, that this agency regulates. So
yeah, and that's why it was really helpful that y'all identified BWC as primary source. Because, I'm sorry, I think I'm getting some feedback. If folks could mute themselves when they're not talking, please.
Yeah.
But that's why it was really helpful, because we wouldn't have been able to make that determination on our own. So we very appreciate the DEQ investigators that have been so diligent and that were able to identify BWC as the primary source.
Yeah, I think if I may, we are getting a little bit of feedback. I'm not sure who that's coming from. If I may.
There were three things that you say that and I would like to clarify those things. Again, anytime we get a complaint, our agency does the investigation. And part of that investigation, our folks in the region, know the sources that are out there. They're pretty familiar with the kinds of products or materials that are handled, at various facilities. And so, based upon the description of the complaint, our guys will go out and conduct an investigation. And so it's with that process and operations knowledge and utilizing meteorological data, looking at the wind direction as one of the variables. And from there, they will say, well, let's go and pay a visit to, given the prevailing winds, we'll go and we'll pay a visit to this site, okay? And so, yes, at that time, there were visits that were made to BWC, and we shared with them because they don't have controls on their tanks, but we shared with them what others in the area had been doing. The terminal escapes me immediately, but and so what they did was they volunteered to go ahead and do odor mitigation.
If I may just speak to this point before, I'm sorry to interrupt. I think there might be a little bit of a lag, but I just wanted to speak to this point that we did not, come along and decide for ourselves, that, we thought this was a BWC Harvey causing these odors. We were actually relying on DEQ personnel. So particularly Brian Tusa in our previous meeting, you specifically said that he believes that Blackwater, BWC, is the primary source that was causing our complaints at that time. But since then, if I may finish this thought, since then I've spoken to many DEQ personnel, Jerry Lang, Brian Gold, Sophia Ong, Daniel Odom, Cindy LaFosse, just to say a few, and it is always understood that what we're dealing with is Blackwater. For example, I have a quote right here. We have a high probability of thinking it's Blackwater based on descriptions and odor complaints and type of material they load. So it's confusing to me that this seems to be almost like a sticking point or something. And I know that Blackwater has sort of tried to build this narrative of pointing the finger either way, and that they're being unfairly blamed. But I think it's very, very important. And a lot of these conversations are recorded, and we're going on DEQ personnel telling us this, that when we call up, oh, you're calling about Blackwater. So I just want to clear that up, that we are not sitting here trying to blame somebody. And if anyone really wants to try to hide behind pointing the finger either way, it can't be ignored that it's already on the record. Brian Tusa, these people that I listed that have explicitly stated this. So, and I'm happy to share those recordings. I think it might be a little bit awkward because I know I don't want to throw anyone under the bus. But it's also, if this is a reversal of that position, I think that also needs to be on the record, because I think that's part of the story. If Brian Tusa wants to come on here and say that he did not say that, if these people want to say that they did not say that, I think we need to actually have that be an official statement as well.
Well, I think that I don't think that would be a very I don't think that that would be appropriate for me to state that someone did not say that. Because what I do know is that at any one point in a given odor episode, it is, each one is investigated. And what I've been doing this for a little while. And
me too.
Right. Yeah. And so, the truth of the matter is there's a lot of activity there. And every time we get an odor complaint, not just in the Irish Channel, but everywhere. Again, we use our process knowledge, and we try to figure out, where it may be coming from, and we go to various, sources sometimes. So certainly at any one time, it could have been this facility, or it could have been this activity, going on here. Again, there are lots of sources. So.
And in the past 2 years of all my dealings with the DEQ, when I'm in this area complaining and I see that there's a bunch of other people complaining, it has been repeatedly been the DEQ's determination that it is Blackwater and as the culprit. And we say primary source just because that was our very first meeting. That's what Brian Tusa, who I understand has he's a little bit up there in position. That was his quote. That was the primary source, but the culprit, the source, these sorts of words. So it's just confusing to us that at this point in time, when we're really trying to get towards a solution for this problem, that we keep on, that seems to be some sort of catching point for somebody. I know it's definitely a catching point for BWC. That's part of their strategy, trying to push that narrative. but I can't tell if that is a DEQ narrative now or not. So I think if it is, we will see that as a reversal of the position because, like I said, this is on the record.
Let us stay on course, and this is what I'm asking to stay on course, because part of you know what we're doing with the monitoring is really going to help us. So what we're going to do is we're going to have our folks from Air Assessment Division talk to you about that monitoring, and hopefully they can get through the monitoring portion, and we will unmute and take questions. Take questions. Yeah. Yeah, we'll take questions. Yeah, we're gonna take questions after we can get through the monitoring.
We have an agenda.
No.
We have an agenda. We can say we have.
Okay,
This is
No.
This is.
And who was it? Yeah.
Hey, yeah, I'm not sure. I think there's a little bit of chaos right now with everyone talking and what we're focused on. There were two different agendas set out, and first, DEQ, Ms. Bennett, where are y'all in what you wanted to talk about? And then I think Kim had something she wanted to say too.
You bet. Oh, where we are is, you know, again, with the monitoring. And again, I'm going to turn that over to our guys so that they can share with you where we are with that and the benefit of this monitoring.
Yeah.
Hi.
Could you
We can talk. We want to
just real quick unmute Kim for a second, because I don't want this to be a fruitless exercise, and I think futile, excuse me. I think we're going in that direction. So if we could just spend a couple of minutes reorienting what we're going to be talking about here. I don't want this to be futile for the residents and for the two council members' offices. You know, I understand y'all have a lot to say, but they have a lot of questions too. So I want to make sure we get through all of that before the end. If you can give Kim a couple of minutes.
Thank you so much, Mandy. And I would just ask that the host not mute us. We will be respectful and mute ourselves when we're not speaking. But just now I wasn't able to ask a question because the host had muted me. I had to unmute myself. So we can all agree, you know, moving forward that won't happen again. And
I hope
Denise, I'm sorry, I'm getting some feedback. Denise, are you able to mute yourself when you're not talking?
I can't. I apologize. I just tried that. I won't be able to, you know, I'd really like us to get through the monitoring and
I understand that. Representative Landry asked you to give me a few minutes to speak, if that's okay. And we'll just deal with the feedback. But we, you know, again, we're looking at the big picture. We're not looking at individual odor events. We're looking at 2 years of this problem. And we understand there's a lot of facilities in this area. Sometimes some may be contributing. But if you have a big problem, let's start with the main culprit and the primary source. And so where we ended off in January was that DEQ identified BWC Harvey as the primary source. You all made that statement to Representative Landry. Individuals have made that statement in recorded phone calls. So, you know, if y'all are reversing that position, then we'd like to hear about that. But barring any reversal, I think we can kind of move forward with the conversation more constructively.
I say at any one time, it could, yes, at any one time when those statements were made, that, you know, again, if our folks said something like that, then we have really good surveillance folks that are out there. So at any one time, yeah, that could have been Blackwater. And if they stated that it was Blackwater, then...
Again, we're talking about the big picture, right? We're talking about the big picture, this overall 2-year problem. When we met in January, y'all told us that BWC Harvey was the primary source of the problem. Big picture, not any one event. And so moving forward, we are eager to talk about the air monitoring. We're very concerned that last night Greg Langley stated to the news that toxic pollutants had not been detected from the air monitors. And so I have y'all's December 2020 air monitoring report that on the first page describes how strong odors were detected outside of BWC Harvey and lists toxic air pollutants that were detected. So please understand that if we are not excited about future air monitoring, it's only because y'all have done air monitoring in the past and gone to the news with statements that contradict the results of the monitoring. So with that, you know, we can provide more documentation and specific examples, and we're happy to do that. But I'll pass it off to you now, and thank you for that couple of moments.
Okay, all right, okay. She just gave me the capability of muting myself. With regard to the monitoring that we have done monitoring, again, taking the mammal out there gives you gives you some good gives you some good information, you know, at that point in time. But with this temporarily located monitoring, we're going to have 24 hours for an extended period of time. Okay, and so that is going to help us tremendously in identifying whether there's perhaps some singular source or, again, multiple sources. But we're trying to get down, you know, to narrow down exactly what events are happening, you know, in the community that is, you know, is causing, you know, all the call-ins. And again, we did, you know, well, so that's what the monitoring is going to do. I'd like for our guys to get through and share with you the benefit of this longer-term monitoring, not just the short-term mammal monitoring, but longer-term monitoring for that area, and what that means to resolving just what you know we hope that you all want, and it's the same thing that we want. And that's, you know, that's to just make sure that the ambient air quality in your area and actually all across Louisiana isn't being, you know, adversely impacted. So, you guys want to go ahead and talk about?
Sure. So I'll kick us off. Good afternoon, everybody. Again, Jason Myers. Just give y'all a little update of where we're at with our air monitoring. You know, it's been a long time coming, but we're still working through all of our, I guess, getting the site prepped and everything. And if anybody has driven by the Leo Benwell play spot the other day, then they've seen that we've moved all our equipment over. We've had the trailer out there. We have the area fenced. We have the little sampling platform out there. And currently, right now, we're waiting to have electricity connected from the pole to our air monitoring site. All electrical has been done on the inside, and we expect that to be, you know, ballpark next week sometime that we'll have the electricity hooked up. And then going from there, our staff will move in and they'll do a shakedown. They'll recalibrate everything and get everything back on track, and to make sure it's all running correctly. And then after that, it will be operational, and it'll be reported to our website. So the benefit, as Denise was mentioning a while ago, for an ambient site as compared to our mammals. You know, our mammals, we can focus in on a very specific area, but they only stay there for a number of days, maybe a week or so. With this, we will be having, you know, continuous round-the-clock monitoring for 6 to 9 months, and this will let us track down a little better where we may see we're getting issues from, where things are coming from, and also give us good, reliable data to kind of base that stuff on. So with that, I know, so just to let y'all know, we'll be monitoring for. We'll have some continuous monitors. This is continuous, you know, they can run around the clock. They're always running. We're going to be monitoring for H2S, and we think H2S is important there because H2S, you could detect it, you could smell at very low concentrations, and it's also a good indicator of where odors may be coming from, and we expect to see some of that in some of the materials that are handled along the river and across the river. We'll also be measuring for particulate matter 2.5. Sulfur dioxide, again, the same for H2S.
Can we speak? Can we speak?
Yeah. We're gonna say.
Can y'all hear? Y'all okay?
We can't.
So also methane, non-methane, and total hydrocarbons. In addition to that, we're going to be monitoring for VOCs, and VOCs will be 24 hours every 6 days. And also PAHs every 24-hour sample every third day.
Question in the chat.
No, I don't believe.
All right.
Do you know where this is being set up?
Yeah, pleasant symptoms.
That's fine.
Hey, thank you for unmuting us. Can we please agree moving forward that we will not be muted? Again, we will be respectful of people's times, but this doesn't feel like a meeting if y'all just mute us arbitrarily and don't allow us to unmute ourselves. It's difficult to ask questions and get clarification on statements that are made if we don't have the power to speak. So I think everyone in this meeting should be allowed to speak and ask questions. Can we agree on that?
Okay, I just want to say that I think earlier some of the confusion was with Denise, with you and that officer, some feedback. So I couldn't tell that you were talking at several points. And because there's so many people in the room, I can't see your faces very closely. So I think now that we've eliminated that feedback and y'all are muting your computers in that room together, we should be able to hear each other much, much better. So if I spoke over you earlier, I think a lot of it was I couldn't hear.
Yeah, actually, Justin, yours, there is a lot of throwback with yours.
Yeah, the feedback is because y'all's microphones are open, not ours, because all of ours are closed. So all of ours are.
Turn off the other computer. That will help prevent some of the feedback. It's having two computers up at the same time.
I'm on headphones here, so there shouldn't be any feedback on my end. But
If multiple people try to speak at the same time, it's going to be some feedback. So that's why we were closing the mic so we can do them one at a time. Because when you start talking all over each other, that's what happens. So that's why I keep muting and unmuting you guys, so they can get through their part, you can get through your part, and everyone is heard. When we keep interrupting, we're not getting anywhere. So that's why I keep doing it. Anyway, you're unmuted now. That's all the mics are closed, so go ahead.
So if you look in the bottom left-hand corner of where your image appears, there's a red microphone that indicates if you're muted. And consistently, all of us have been muting ourselves. Treb, if you could mute yourself, that would be great. I did ask a clarifying question about a statement that I think it's Mr. Bailey, made about the monitor. So you mentioned that it's going to measure hydrogen sulfide, which is something that causes odors. So when the monitoring went out last December, the mobile monitors, they went in front of BWC Harvey. They measured high concentrations of hydrogen sulfide right outside the facility, downwind, as well as on Tchoupitoulas in our neighborhood. And then Mr. Langley went on the news last night saying that there were no toxic air pollutants measured. So if you could help me understand how, the hydrogen sulfide monitoring that has already been done, why is that being discounted, and why are we now proposing to do additional hydrogen sulfide monitoring, and why are we discounting the work that DEQ has already done so diligently?
Oh, I don't believe anybody has mentioned that we're discounting the monitoring for the mammals. Certainly the monitoring for the mammals will help us as well. What we're saying is we are going to get additional data from additional H2S monitoring. Right? Does that answer the question?
The only site.
I don't understand why you think we're doing
So maybe I can clarify. So last night on the news and in the Advocate, Greg Langley for DEQ said, quote, "We are not seeing anything toxic. Our monitors are not detecting anything toxic." The DEQ classifies hydrogen sulfide as a toxic air pollutant. And it was detected through the monitoring that y'all already did. And that's what you're proposing to focus on now through the stationary monitor.
So I understand what you're saying. So I'm not familiar with Greg's comments, but what we saw in the mammals are not near our ambient air standards. So ambient air standards for H2S is like 237.
So the ambient air standard for Louisiana for hydrogen sulfide is 165 times higher than what EPA considers a safe level. And to me, the ambient air standards are a separate conversation. If DEQ is going to go in the news and say that the monitors did not detect anything toxic, then to me that's a problem. And I think to build trust with the community and to get us to fully support the monitoring effort going forward, it would be very helpful if y'all could release something that clarifies that the fact that you all have already detected toxic air pollutants both in our neighborhood and downwind of BWC Harvey, and that your December 2020 report indicates that strong asphalt-like odors were detected downwind of BWC terminal by DEQ staff during this project, and that the first day of the mission, odors were very potent. I mean, I'm reading word for word. So
with regard to the statement made by the press secretary, again, I'm confident that when we talk about I know that you're making a difference between like what is actually detected because H2S was detected, but I would go out on a limb and say that what he was saying was that it was not above the ambient air standard. So I mean, again,
I can share the screen and we can watch what he said, but I told you the quote, right? Quote, "We haven't seen anything toxic. Our air monitors have not detected anything toxic," right?
I'll take a look at it. Bob?
We absolutely stand by what we said in our reports. Okay, there's nothing's changed about that. The concentrations, you're going to find H2S in a lot of situations, and they're not at concentrations that are going to be above any health criteria. And I think that's probably what he was referring to.
I have a quick question. My name is Damien. I'm from Councilmember Christian Palmer's office. I see you said that the air assessment takes about 6 to 9 months to sort of have the data. Would those assessments be real time to whereas right off the back what is let, or is it 6 to 9 months and then a report is generated, or does it generate real time reports?
Most of the data is going to be from continuous monitors, which will be reported hourly and be available on our website as it becomes available, which is, we poll it twice an hour. And it's
okay, so if it's reporting hourly, you actually would you actually need 6 to 9 months to come to a conclusion that, hey, this is abnormal levels, it's coming from this sort of factory, or would you need that 6 to 9 month timeline to come to a conclusion about where they're actually coming from?
Well, I don't know if until we start to see the data, I don't know if we can come to a conclusion at that point, but we do believe that, historically we've seen, over that period of time, that gives you enough time to see some sort of trend at least.
Gotcha. Okay.
So, decisions will be made over time, given the kind of data that we're seeing.
And just
go ahead, Kimberly.
no, please, Matthew, go ahead.
Yeah, to Damien's point, this is Matthew from Councilmember Banks' office. I know during the last city council meeting, Councilmember Banks said he wanted to invite interested parties, LDEQ, to our August, or potentially our August Community Development Committee meeting, and that's on August 10th. That's a month from now, or a month and 2 days. Is that enough time for LDEQ to have enough data to present at a committee meeting?
Well, it's quite possible that we'll have some preliminary data that we could share with you. Now, we'll be looking at different, we'll also be monitoring for the wind direction and wind speed. So we'll have to be looking at how that plays into everything that goes on. But also the amount of rainfall that we get, because the rain has a tendency to wash a lot of it out. And you're not getting a lot of data that's real helpful for trying to find the odors and stuff like that.
So, I'm sorry. So would this be data that you all, is it new data you're collecting, or is it in addition to the old data that you already have?
It's new data that we're collecting, correct. And
okay.
The other thing that not all of our monitors are continuous monitors. The VOCs that we take the canister samples, those are going to be collected and then sent to the lab, and then that's 3 to 4 weeks before that data even comes back for us. And that's one of the reasons you need the full 9 months. That's also true with the PAHs that we're going to be sampling for. Those are going to be collected once every 3 days, a 24-hour sample, and sent out for laboratory analysis. And that will be 3 to 4 weeks before that data starts coming back to us. So in a month's time, we'll really have data, not from the PAHs. I think we're going to have a very robust monitoring system in place that's going to help us out. But,
and if I can ask a clarifying question. So you said that the PAHs will be a canister sample that's taken once every 3 days. If our suspicions are correct and these plumes of toxic fumes are coming from loading barges of asphalt on the river, we have to get lucky enough that that's captured in the once every 3 days sampling. And then we also have to keep in mind that that sample pulls air into the canister for a 24-hour period. So if you get like an overwhelming spike, that's going to be averaged out. If that spike goes away and the canister continues to sample air, or if the sampling starts, halfway through the spike, whatever the case may be, because that's a 24-hour sample. Am I correct in understanding that?
The PAHs are not sampled in a canister. They're sampled on a polyurethane foam and XAD2 resin cartridge.
Okay, so but it's a 24-hour sample?
Still a 24-hour sample, and I'm well aware about how pollutants can be, or the concentrations can be diluted over time, but they still show up, and they're going to show up in additional concentrations that we can find and detect. This is also going to help us to determine, kind of which constituents of the PAHs that we may be seeing, and hopefully be able to identify and be a little bit more specific about where they are originating from. So there's a number of reasons for doing these PAHs.
Okay, and I guess my concern is, you acknowledge that, yes, the PAHs can become diluted over time because the sample is a 24-hour sample, but that they'll still be detected. But the problem is that as y'all have just said, you're comparing, you're looking at the values, you're looking at the levels, and we have examples of toxic air pollutants being detected. But Deputy Secretary Bennett just stated that, they're not at high levels. So we're kind of hearing two different messages. We're hearing that the level doesn't matter because it's going to show up, it's going to be detected. But then we're also hearing that, oh, well, yeah, even if it's detected, it's not at a high level.
For the record, I don't believe that I stated high level. What I stated was above an ambient air quality standard.
Okay, but having said that, the point remains, right? If standards are being diluted over time and your focus is comparing them to ambient air standards that are outdated, and in the case of hydrogen sulfide, 165 times the level that EPA says is safe to protect against nasal lesions, which are lesions inside your nose, you know, we're concerned that, you know, we already have monitoring data, right? The monitoring data that y'all have done are based on mobile units that have the advantage that they can go to these different facilities, go to the different neighborhoods, and you found high levels of hydrogen sulfide. You detected strong asphalt and tar odors. I'm looking at the report right here. So please help me understand how a stationary monitor that can't move is going to identify the problem when we haven't identified it already, apparently, which is different from what we heard in January.
Back to our PAH issue real quick. PAHs are something that do not lend themselves to being sampled continuously. So that's why we've chosen to schedule once every 3 days. They do come with a cost, of course. That's why we're kind of leaning back towards H2S, because H2S is a good indicator. And once you see H2S spikes, you can look back at med data and kind of backtrack to where exactly you need to be looking.
So is it possible to measure PAHs every day? I know they can't be measured continuously, but could you collect a sample every day?
It's possible, it's just a very substantial cost.
And to follow up on...
Real quick, just if you can let me know what the cost is, that's something depending on what it is, like maybe I can help with what is substantial and follow up with that.
That's $300 an analysis. Each analysis is $300.
So what are we, I mean, what are we talking about? Larger picture?
Well, again, if we were looking at for sure that we would not, what, 6 to 9 months we were talking about for sure without easy monitoring.
$3,000 a month or so. Right?
$3,000 a month. I'll help you find that money. But if there's more, let me know.
Excuse me.
$300 a day for, I mean.
$300 a day or $3,000 a month?
$300 a day. Each sample, each 24-hour sample is $300.
That's $9,000.
Gina, did you want to say something?
Yes, I want to know why isn't BWC responsible for monitoring their own air, and why aren't they responsible for these costs?
Very good question.
Excellent question.
Yes, they're the one causing the problems, and how are they within compliance of the Air Quality Act if they have no monitors to prove that they are? Where is their data that proves that they're within compliance of the Air Quality Act? Why is the public responsible for this when they need to prove that they're within air quality compliance?
Well, there has not been any to date. There has not been an enforcement action or violation found at BWC.
Because there's no data.
And that's actually not accurate. So in January 2020, there was a site inspection that found that BWC was not maintaining logs of its toxic air emissions on site, which it is supposed to do according to its permit. And so there was a compliance order issued compelling BWC to produce those logs. So I want to clarify for the record that that statement that was just made is not correct. But I think back to Gina's point that, you know, why is the burden of cost and proof on the community? We have been asking for more than 6 months for the calculations that DEQ relies upon to state that BWC is not violating its permit. So just to be clear, there is no monitoring whatsoever that is being done to determine whether this facility is complying with its permit. It's all based on math and calculations, and we have not seen those calculations despite repeated requests for them. Gina, did you have another question?
Yes. How is it that any company can hold these volatile compounds, and we know that they're in possession of millions of gallons of toxic product, and not have to provide the data for the monitoring?
Again, I can't answer that question, except that this facility is a minor source facility, and they manage products that have a low vapor pressure.
Does it make sense?
And based upon the engineering calculations, they were placed as a minor source.
Minor source, 900 million gallons is minor?
Well, how minor sources are determined are based upon the kinds of vapors that escape from that site, off-site.
Well,
900 million gallons.
And to be more accurate, they're determined based on the emissions, right? Based on the
90 million, I'm sorry, it's 90 million gallons, not 900. It's 90 million gallons of toxic product. And they're not required to have one of their own monitors, and they provide you with a report that says they're within compliance based on their word. How is that possible?
That is how Congress that's how Congress regulates with regard to, again, it's not the amount of material that's there, but it is a calculation of the emissions that
Can we see those calculations? We've been asking for those calculations for more than 6 months. They are public records. I submitted a public record. Can we see those calculations? Because the permit application, please let me finish my thought. The calculations that are in the permit application do not match the values in the permit. And that's a problem. We've been asking for that information for 6 months. That is public information, and it needs to be produced.
What? I'm sorry, Ms. Terrell. I'm giving you the floor because I want to capture that question that you just asked. I really did not understand it, and I'm a chemical engineer. So what was that question with regard to what was not being produced?
So the designation for a minor source and the determination of whether the facility is complying with its air permit relies on mathematical calculations. We have not seen those calculations despite asking for them repeatedly. They are not present on EDMS. They are not in the air permit application where they should be, because the calculations in the air permit application have different totals that don't match what's in the permit. So for example, the permit says that BWC Harvey is allowed to emit about 67 tons per year of VOCs, which we can think of as fumes, right? These are volatile chemicals that we inhale and detect often as odors. Where did that number come from? Where did that 60-something tons per year of VOCs come from? We have not been able to get that answer to that question, and we have been asking for more than 6 months. And we are told that the facility is in compliance with its permit, but we never see any data to back up those statements.
What I sent you guys the other day was that we would be sending you all in writing, answers or responses to the report. But what I'd like to do, do you mind putting in the chat that question? We have to like that, right? And we'll make sure that that is one of the questions. If it's not already identified in that report that you all sent out, then we will answer that question. So if you don't mind doing that, that'll help me to capture, that question that you all want answered.
Okay, I mean, the question is simply, where are the emissions calculations? It's very basic. Because again, all of this is based on calculations that no one, and this, to be clear, this is documentation that should exist already, right? Because this is the basis for issuing BWC its permit, and this is the basis for determining whether it's complying with that permit. So this is documentation that should exist. You know, you don't need to go off and do calculations. You need to please show us the calculations that have been done already.
Okay, I got what you're asking. You're not talking about their potential to emit. You're talking about their actual. You're talking about their actual emissions.
No, I'm talking about their potential to emit, which is what the permit is based on, right? So their potential to emit, which is what the permit is based on, and how you determine whether they're complying with that permit, right? Okay. The potential to emit is the limit, right? It's the limit of pollution that the facility is bound to.
And it is that potential to emit that determines whether they're going to be a minor, major, or major source. Yeah. So
yes.
So when you where are they? You don't. With the potential to emit. Okay, I mean, again, that is going to be in their permit application. I can say it.
I can share my screen and I can show you how the calculations in the permit application don't match what's in the actual permit. And our report talks about that, and we told you that in January, and we followed up with a letter in March where we made the same points. So it's a bit disappointing that, you know, it seems like we still are not able to address this major discrepancy.
We are addressing that again. So if it is in that report, we are addressing it. We are addressing it. And we hope
I'm sorry, I was talking about our report, the report that we published.
Yeah, we're talking about the report that you all published. You're saying that.
Well, that's great to hear that you're already addressing it. Can you share with us what you've learned so far?
I'm sorry. I used to be a chemical engineer, but I'm not assessing it. That's not my role at this point, so I do not know it, and I wish I did. But again, that is forthcoming. That is forthcoming. We're responding directly to the report, to your report.
Okay, and one last point to clarify, and then we can move on. So, you know, when we get calls from DEQ investigators saying that, you know, we've checked and the facility is complying with its permit, with its emission limit, are you familiar with what they're basing those statements on? And can you share that with us? Because this permit has been supposedly under scrutiny for the last 2 years. So I respect that, you know, none of us are practicing chemical engineers at the moment, but I'm sure that, you know, everyone from DEQ is broadly familiar with the permit since this has been an issue that's been ongoing for 2 years. So when the inspectors say that the facility is complying with its permit, what are those statements based on?
I wish I could speak directly to that. And I can't speak. I can't speak to a fifth that I don't have in front of me. But certainly, certainly with that question, that's a kind of broad question because I'm sure that there are a number of inspections. You know, for all of the.
Can you give us an example?
I'm sorry. Can I give an example?
You use a number of inspections. If the question is too broad, can you talk about one specific incident and what they've based that determination on? Again, this is a pretty fundamental question, right? You all have said they're complying with their permit. What is that based on?
So, actually, what you're asking me to do right now I don't have a fifth in front of me. I don't have a field investigation form in front of me, and I would defer to that individual who is in the field, with that form. So if you have a question specific to a fifth, perhaps that is one of the questions that we can get answered for you, so that we can talk to that field investigator. But I don't think that it is within my realm to speak about a fifth that I don't even know what I'm speaking to, and being in the mind of the inspector.
So this is Yarrow Etheridge. I just wanted to jump in a little bit because, you know, I haven't been engaged in all the data review that has gone on to date. And so I think what maybe is missing from the kind of what is the real question is that there was a data request from what I'm picking up that said, can you show us when the source is being required to present evidence that it's complying with its permit? I think there's been a request to just provide what that evidence is, so that we could evaluate whether the where is it in regards to its permit limits, and also what is the basis for the permit limits. Do they really have a permit for the amount of product that they're handling, for example, or the activities that they're doing with it? For example, did you know when they applied for the permit that they were going to just dump free form the product from barges into a tank? So I don't know what all that was, and you know, like I'm saying, I just am catching up on this. But it just to clarify, I think the big question is, since they haven't produced data to demonstrate that they're complying with their permit and they don't have any monitoring requirements, it doesn't seem like DEQ could logically conclude that they are complying with their permit, or if you can, great, but based on what? Does that help?
I think that our inspectors, our inspectors, when they go out there, that they do a really fine job, inquiring and asking all the appropriate questions about any of their activity and looking at any records or logs that they might have. The company is not required to produce any of to send any records into us. So yes, our inspectors have access to looking at those records on site.
I'm sorry, I just want to back up. I don't think you probably don't have the information, like you said, to reply to the question now. I wanted to make sure that it was understood what the question is when you're responding to it. But I don't think that, I would hope that your certainty would be based on the fact that the people who are doing the inspections keep some records that you could refer to. So whatever that is, whatever your protocol is, if you don't have any records, maybe it would be helpful to describe what the protocol is or provide a copy of the protocol, because just kind of going out there at a random time, when they may or may not be dumping this product that seems to be causing these, emissions to swell in time, that's questions like that are what is relevant to this discussion.
Again, our inspectors I back our inspectors. They're really good inspectors. And I am sure that the records that are required to be on site, that our inspectors, as needed to determine whether they are in compliance or not, they will review those records on site, because those records are required to stay on site. And actually, in the fifth, when the inspector went out there to do the inspection and there were no records there for them to review, then that would be a violation if it is part of the record keeping process. And and again, I'm not looking at any specific fifth right now, but the inspector, I'm sure, would cite a violation if records were supposed to be there and they were not.
Sure, and maybe it would help if I kind of make a distinction. So when the inspector shows up, they are looking for physical signs of permit violations, right? What I'm talking about are the calculations, right? So the inspector cannot see the toxic air emissions that are being produced, right? These are invisible. You can't look at them to determine if the amount of pollution coming from the facility is within a limit. That is done mathematically. And those calculations are something that any one of us could do sitting in front of our computer. We don't need to physically go to the site. And so what we're asking for repeatedly are those calculations. And that is something that we have not, our requests have been ignored.
So you're asking for their on-site records, that when our folks go on their site and it's required to be kept on site, you want their on-site records that they're supposed to keep on site?
No, that is not what we're asking for. Their permit says that they can emit a maximum of about 67 tons per year of VOCs and a maximum of 7, I think, pounds per hour of VOCs. Where are the calculations to determine whether they are exceeding those limits or not? We're not talking about on-site records. We're not talking about company information. We're talking about calculations that DEQ has done to determine compliance with the permit.
Okay, I got you. I got you. Was that also in your report? Was that question there? Okay, all right.
Yes, yeah. So in our report, we make the point that the limit in the permit doesn't match the calculations in the application, and they have no way to tell whether the facility is releasing more air pollution than what it's allowed to. There's no independent public review of that. And I know we're over an hour, and I want to be respectful of everybody's time. But I wanted to just quickly bring up one final point from my end, and then see if anyone else had any questions. And that is that it's very concerning to us that when DEQ investigators follow up on these toxic odor complaints, they give the companies the time and dates of the complaints. So for example, they'll call and say, we need your activities from 9:03 p.m. to 10:17 p.m. on April 20th, right? And when you do that, you're giving the companies the opportunity to manipulate their logs. And we know that they're manipulating their logs because the logs that they send you have the times of our complaints embedded within the logs. So they're not sending you original documentation. They're sending you something that they created with the complaints in mind, because in fact they have added the times of our complaints to their activity logs. And if that's the basis for determining that they're in compliance or for investigating these concerns, that's a huge red flag.
Again, I recognize that question, so I know that one was in the report, in your report, right?
But can you tell me from your perspective, I feel like this is an issue, with all due respect, that you could speak to without needing anything in front of you. Is it DEQ's policy to give potential violators the exact time and date of complaints when they're being investigated?
Complaints are public record. I mean,
they're actually not they're actually not, because I requested them and I was told that while the complaints are being investigated, they're confidential information. I submitted a public records request for recent complaints, very recent complaints, and I was told that was unavailable until the investigations were complete.
And see, so good. Again, that would be a question to be answered by, in writing by our permits folks. Definitely going to leave that up to them. And by our surveillance folks. So again, that response to you all's report is forthcoming, and we look forward to getting that out to you as soon as possible.
I have a couple. I'm sorry. Did you want to say something, Yaro?
Okay.
No. Well, I was only going to suggest that it might be a good idea to put some thought into when to have a scheduled meeting to review the response, just so we could clear up if there's questions, that at least they could be resolved in a timely fashion while the monitoring is still going on.
I just had a couple of thoughts on this meeting. In our first meeting with DEQ, Brian Johnson was not there, at least at the beginning of the meeting, and that was the reason given for not being able to talk about a lot of permit issues. And over in this meeting, you're being told that these permit issues, and we have a lot of questions about the permits of this company. We've dwelt mostly on the inspections and whatnot. But one of the things that we did talk about that was not deferred to a forthcoming response that I look forward to reading was the comments of Greg Langley. So provably false statements that he's making in the news the night after we go on the news, going on there, and publicly stating that you have not detected toxic stuff. There's also another comment I wanted to speak to in the Advocate where he said that no inspectors were smelling the smells that we have been smelling, and that is completely contradictory to not only reports in the EDMS by inspectors, but many conversations I've had over the last year and a half with inspectors. I want to just do one quote. I've smelt it. It stinks. It smells like an asphalty. I smelt it off of Chapatulas. And this is over and over and over again. So for Greg Langley, I just want this to be addressed because you said, Denise, that you will look into it. And I do want to hear some follow-up on this because this is your spokesperson. And it's provably false statements for him to go on the news, in the Advocate, and contradict what we have been told over and over and over again by inspectors that they do smell it. They do smell this asphalt scent. And I just wanted to get that out there because of all the things in this meeting. We've been looking forward to this for 6 months. We're still going to have to look forward to hearing about the permitting, how exactly all these permits were issued in particular. But I just wanted to get that on the record that we would like a follow-up on these.
Yes, I'd like to clarify, again, based upon you stating that you have reported where our inspectors did say that it was strong asphalt or that it was black water, and that which conflicts with other things that are being said by our press secretary. Again, our press secretary was speaking to a 3-week period where we have been getting so many calls.
That was not clear.
Going on. We was like, what is going on? And we published a report. For 3 weeks, we tried to get to the spot. Anytime a call came in, we dedicated resources to running out there to try and experience what the community has been experiencing. We really were out. We dedicated a lot of resources to that. And so
respectfully, if I can ask a clarifying question. So this problem has been going on for 2 years. And so last night your spokesperson was on the news saying that for 1 3-week period.
I wasn't even allowed to finish speaking.
Go ahead.
Not fair.
We were mute.
Well, look,
Unbelievable.
we're going to wrap things up. It is after the hour. And, I hope that once we have commissioned the monitors, that we can bring you all out there so that you can see the monitoring that we're doing, so that you can see, how it may be of benefit. I know that a lot of you don't believe that it'll be of a benefit, but that is part of the process of trying to determine what the problems are and where the problems might be. So we hope that you all can come out and learn a little bit more about it, and that you all will know that you have something in your community and you can track those emissions, the ones that are continuous. And Representative Landry, in the event we can get some more funding, we are going to be monitoring for PAHs every 3? Every 3 days. And so, if you all have any other questions, please, you can go ahead and send them to me, and we can add them to the questions that we were addressing directly in the report that Join had produced.
So a few things. Are you still planning to do that written response that you emailed about the other day?
Yes.
And do you have a sort of rough estimate on that?
Well, look, actually, I don't have folks from surveillance in here, nor permits, but I was told that, again, it is something that they're working on, and what I can do is I'll get you a timeline. I'll contact those individuals and see where they are in the process, and we plan on releasing that.
I am thinking that we may need an in-person meeting with me and reps from the 2 offices one or two people from Join, and I can ask the governor's office to help. I think like this has gotten way beyond, it's become a large issue, and also like I don't fully understand all of it, and I know the council members, staff don't, because we're not science people, and there's like a disconnect trying to help our constituents and the science of it. I think we should think about that relatively soon. I know that y'all want to get the response and the monitoring in place. Do we have a rough estimate on when the monitor might be starting?
Respectfully, I will request Representative Landry that we at least provide that report, because that'll speak to the questions and those concerns. And thereafter, I agree. I think that if there are any lingering questions or concerns, or even if it's just a, well, how did we get to this point? I think that we'll have that information there and available for us to speak more directly to.
Yes, a response would be helpful. I know, I'm trying, Join is trying, Jay and Kristen and y'all are trying, and we're all kind of in different areas. And so it's even hard for me to make an ask sometimes because there's so much information flowing. I do think that, it is important to remember that several members of Join, this is their career as well. Kim has a PhD in this area. I do trust them when they are presenting these questions and information, that they know what they're talking about, as I expect DEQ to provide factual information as well. So I'm hoping we can just get a little more clear on what's outstanding. I know Kim says she sent several public records requests that are outstanding, I think, and to the extent we can work on some of that in the meantime, I'm happy to help with that too. But I do think this has become a bigger issue, which is good in a sense, because now we have more eyes on it. But it's hard sometimes for some of us to zero in on what the asks are here, besides the overarching make the odor stop, which is the main ask here. And we are getting a little lost in the details of what's going on, but there is a definite odor. The complaints, prove that something is going on. This many people are not imagining this over this length of time, especially in two different areas. So I think we need to just really figure out what we can do to lower this to an undetectable level, because it's not going away. It's only gotten worse since 2019. I agree they should not be responsible for paying for it either, if we can figure out who it is.
Well, thank you all.
No.
Can you, Kim, sorry. Unmute Kim.
Unmute.
Oh, okay.
We cannot speak.
Okay. I'm having a hard time understanding why y'all would do that to us. This is the third time that I have asked you not to mute participants. And this is not an equitable meeting if we are being muted and silenced. So I agree with Representative Landry that we need an in-person meeting, because everybody needs the opportunity to have their concerns heard. And I want to just wrap up by asking respectfully, DEQ, if you all would release a statement confirming that you have in fact detected toxic air pollutants downwind of Blackwater or BWC in your follow-up investigations. Because I understand that the media can take sound bites, and that perhaps Mr. Langley's statement last night on the news was, a sound bite that was taken out of context. So what would help build trust with us and what would help us participate in future meetings is if y'all would release a statement confirming that you have detected toxic air pollutants downwind of BWC Harvey as described in your December 2020 and March 2021 reports.
I think that was already taken in the reports, wasn't it? Everything, any investigation that we went on, we reported what we saw and what we smelled.
I didn't do anything.
It's you.
So once again, we were muted. I don't understand how this keeps happening.
I didn't do that, so I'm not sure what happened.
Okay.
Oh, no.
It's not me.
No, sure.
I mean, I didn't do anything either.
I don't know.
I'm going to take a screenshot.
I can host the next Zoom if that's possible.
Okay. Well, we're going to get that, we're going to get the report out, to you all. And
I'm sorry, I finally have been unmuted, and I just want to say that to be muted like this over and over again, I find it to be extremely disrespectful. We've been waiting for this meeting for a very long time. We've been very polite in how we've engaged with you. There's no reason to mute us repeatedly, and like over and over again. So please, with the muting, I just want to say that I appreciate meeting with you guys. I know that the DEQ works very, very hard. I know you have a lot of roadblocks of your own. We really respect your work. One particular thing, though, about kind of trying to steer this conversation into the air monitoring over and over and over again. We've already brought the details of why we think that air monitoring won't work. The answers we were given in response do not really seem to clear much up. But I want to go back to the original meeting that we had when we came to you with these problems, where I explained that I have fumes seeping into my house that my child is breathing, that every day you make us wait, my family is being poisoned. So in that meeting for you, Ms. Bennett, you actually said to me, we're going to get this air monitoring, and you said a phrase, and I'll paraphrase that. And when we get that set up and we see that there's no, it's not above level, maybe that will set your mind at ease. So the idea that these monitors are going to be put into place not to actually find them doing anything, but to placate us is an idea that you planted in my head, Denise, by saying that to us, that your goal is to assuage our concerns. We are smelling this every day, and we need it to stop. And we are not going to stop trying to get to the bottom of this. And I don't think these monitors are going to get to the bottom of this, quite frankly. And I'm not basing that on a hunch. We're basing that on everything we know about these VOCs, these PAHs, all of it. The time frames, the wind direction. I've spoken to DEQ employees who don't think it's going to work. So that's what I wanted to say before I was muted. I think I would have said it a little bit calmer if I hadn't been muted for a large part of this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you all. What you all have to say matters. And again, steps that we're taking to get to the bottom of this. I believe that we're taking the right steps, and I hope that we hope to clear the matter up. So, Representative Landry, as soon as we get the report together, we'll send it out, and we'll also send it to Jordan.
Okay, I'm gonna start looping in a few other people just to start narrowing in this, because it just, like, time just keeps kind of passing. And I'm gonna try to, like, touch base with y'all a little more frequently now that I'm out of session, although apparently I may be up there starting the 20th for a week. But I just think we need to move a little bit quicker on this, and to the extent we can get some other people helping to move this along. It's been going on for too long.
And once again, it's Matthew from Councilmember Banks' office. I'm going to be following up with you, or members of LDEQ, to determine if there's going to be any data that y'all would be able to present at the August 10th Community Development Committee meeting. If we have to wait a little longer, I'm sure we can work on that, but we want to see if there's anything worth presenting at that meeting. So we'll follow up on that too.
That sounds good. All right.
And Matthew, perhaps you could ask for the existing data to be presented as well, like the stuff from December and March that we already have.
Okay. All right. Thank you, guys.
I could, but it's up to the council members. So yeah, but we'll request to see if we can do it in August, and we'll go from there.
Last thing, a copy of this meeting would be very helpful to us as well.
What kind of copy?
A video copy.
We don't have a video copy.
Okay, I think that's really important for future meetings to always record it because it is a public record.
Okay. Thank you.